Veterans, AKV employees, everybody watching, welcome back to the Veteran YouTube channel, where I'm your friendly VA accredited attorney, Matthew Lang, here to provide you with some more education about VA disability. We're going to talk about specialty monthly compensation today, SMC as we know it. I'm going to break this down to a 101 level. Why are we going to talk about this today? Well, it was a special request from the comments, and I want to make sure I fulfill those special requests and give you that knowledge that you're looking for. So who is this going to be for, and what are our objectives in this lesson? Well, our audience is going to be you, veterans, new and experienced, whether you are new to the VA disability world, whether you've had a few go-arounds with the VA. It's for all of you, every single veteran out there. It's also for you, VA employees, the adjudicators, the advocates, all the dedicated VA employees out there. Our objective is going to be understanding the SMC purpose, the legal framework, the basic eligibility, and common paths. So again, the basics. We're going to focus on the basics today. Our scope, again, is going to be a foundational level of 101 SMC topic. Will there be more topics about SMC in the future? You bet. But for now, let's get the basics down. And I'm going to do my best to have this done within 20 minutes or less. And now let's see how everything goes. Can I do it? So what is SMC? Well, the plain English. Let's leave all that legalese out. The plain English of what SMC is it's an additional tax-free benefits paid for certain combinations of disabilities and functional loss. So it goes beyond the scheduler ratings when impairments cause special circumstances, such as loss of use of something, or the need for aid and attendance, or a housebound. So keep in mind, veterans and VA, that at the basic level of SMC, what we're really talking about is an additional monetary amount on top of your already provided monies for evaluations for service-connected conditions. Now, it's all going to be related to your service-connected conditions, but it's additional monetary amount. The authority for SMC, if you want to have a little bit of light or boring reading, check out 38 USC section 1114. This is also going to be found in 38 CFR 3.350 and 3.352. Now, let's take a glance at the legal framework. We talked about the statute of 38 USC 1114. This is the top. This is the top that establishes the SMC levels. This is the law that sits on top before we work our way down through the CFR, before we get to the court cases. This is what's establishing SMC levels. Now, these SMC levels are coming from the paragraphs within 38 USC 1114. So you're going to probably know them as, or see them as, SMC K, SMC L, SMC M, SMC N, SMC O, SMC P, R, S, T. Anybody else feel like they're on a Sesame Street episode? Today's episode is brought to you by the letters K, L, M, N, O, P. All right, anyhow, the idea is that each letter represents a paragraph that's found within the statute. That's your SMC levels. Now we get down into the regulations. The 38 CFR 3.350 starts to define the entitlement pathways and the combinations better than what the USC has. So the USC gets us started, gives us some really good information into SMC, and then we start to explain it more as we get down to the CFR. But we don't stop just in one spot of the CFR. We're going to also look into 3.352, which is going to give us the definition of aid and attendance and the higher level care criteria. So keep in mind, when you're working with law, we can't just read one thing and stop there. We always got to ask, is there more? And we're going to find there is. But today's focus will be on these three references right here. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of those letters. SMC K. Well, SMC K is our first paragraph in 38 USC 1114 that provides an additional benefit. It's known as loss of use of certain anatomical or sensory losses, typically. This is going to be paid in addition to other compensation for specific losses. Say a loss of use of a hand, a foot. I'd show you that too, but I can't get that high. Perhaps a creative organ. And I would say the creative organ is the more popular one that we see in the VA world and the VA claims. Could be for deafness, blindness of one eye, even. And again, that's where we look at the CFR 3.350. Get a little bit more detail on that information. See what that criteria in there. Now, loss of use, though. It's no effective function remaining other than that which an amputation with prosthesis would equally serve. Now, that's kind of getting a little down in there, probably a little tapping into that legal kind of, what does that mean? And as we go through this, I'm hoping we get a little understanding of it. If you don't get it, don't worry. We will do more SMC as we go. Now, the thing to take away with from K as well, the SMC K is a very unique one because it has so many different specific losses, as we talked about the loss of use of the hand, the foot, the deafness, the blindness, the one eye, the creative organ. It is possible, veterans and VA, it is possible to be awarded more than one SMC K. Awards may also be payable when criteria are separately met to other SMC Ks. But there are limits in the regulations. But just know it is possible to receive multiple awards for SMC K. It is possible to receive SMC K while receiving other SMC levels as well. Again, there's some deeper legal issues there that we may have to sort out in the future. Just know the possibility exists. Now, the other popular SMC that we find when we're working with VA disability claims is SMCS. We're going to see how many times I stumble on. See, that S is going to get me. How many times can I stumble on the letter S? SMCS. This is typically known as housebound. There are two pathways for receiving SMCS. And again, as you see, the reference is going to be 3.350, and it's just going to be another paragraph in there. But it's going to revert back to 38 USC 1114, paragraph S. So, what are the two ways? Let me get down to it. Statutory. Statutory, as we know it, requires one single 100% disability. 100% single disability. I've written scheduler on here. Do know it is possible still underneath a TDIU 100% to still count as a 100% disability, but we may be talking again about more arguments on legal and evidence review. But the main concept is 100%, one single 100% disability plus additional separate 60% disabilities from one or more disabilities. So think about it this way. Let's say you got 100% veterans for PTSD. That's your single 100%. We're going to set that one aside now, and we're not going to count it anymore. It's already been used. Now what you have is, say, a back condition, maybe a degenerative joint disease at 40%. Maybe you've got a knee service-connected, say your right knee, at another 10%, a left knee another 10%, maybe you got an ankle at 10%, both ankles another 10%, hips 10 and 10. The point is now we start adding these up. Once they reach 60% combined, well, there's our criteria for the second half. We can take those and put them aside, and we see we have 100% and 60%. You get granted SMCS, statutory housebound. Now, the other part of SMCS is the actual housebound. Now, this means you're actually substantially confined veterans to a dwelling and immediate premises due to service-connected disabilities, typically. This, I would imagine the VA would agree with me from all my experience anyways, is typically not what we see. We don't usually see the second requirement pop up in order to grant the SMCS. I would say almost every time, from my experience from working within the VA and from even now, it's that statutory, the 100% and the 60% combined, that usually gets that SMCS. Now let's keep moving on. We're going to keep going through some letters here. So this slide is brought to you by the letter L. Okay, a little more Sesame Street for you. So aid and attendance. This is probably the third common one that we see. So aid and attendance, SMCL. This is kind of the core level for aid and attendance. This is going to require a factual need for regular aid and attendance. Again, it's in the CFR, but if you notice, we've went from 3.350 over to 3.352. So 3.352 is going to give us that definition of what that factual need for regular aid and attendance is. Now, it's not an all-inclusive list by any means. Nothing in law is all-inclusive list, but it gives you a lot of stuff. For example, the key factors: inability to dress or undress yourself. Keep yourself ordinarily clean. Can you bathe yourself? Do you need help bathing yourself every day? Adjust your prosthetics if you have them. Do you need help feeding yourself? How about the attendance to your wants of nature and protect yourself from hazards of daily environment? So the idea here is that veterans, you would need to be able to show to the VA that you have a need from your service-connected conditions. Now, keep in mind, non-service-connected conditions may also play a role in the need of aid and attendance, but as long as your service-connected conditions play a majority role or a complete role, we can argue that aid and attendance L level should be granted. But you have to show it usually through medical evidence, lay evidence, personal statements, buddy statements, and so forth. Now, keep in mind, though, at the L level VA, it does not require 24/7 care, but the regular need must be shown again by competent evidence, veterans. So help the VA out on that. Help them with that evidence. But keep in mind, VA, you don't need 24/7 care. Now, I'm not sure if I have it in my notes right now in my slides, but I do want to make sure, in case I don't, I want to highlight one thing for VA too, is we're on the 101 level. Something I will see here that the VA mistakes is they will deny SMC-L with a statement saying that, veteran, you were not service-connected at 100%. There is no statutory regulation, to my knowledge, and the VA would agree in their own manual, M21-1, that there is no statutory regulation, as they even say, requiring 100% disability to receive aid and attendance. So keep that in mind, VA, just on your side. We do understand that there are some SMCs that require 100%. We talked about with SMCS, but SMC-L, there is no legal requirement in either the United States Code or the Code of Federal Regulations requiring 100% disability. Is it likely to see that 100% disability? 100% disability? Perhaps, but not a requirement. We get into higher levels of SMC. Now, this is a spot I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with. This is definitely something at a much more advanced level. The VA taught me a whole dance and all kinds of fun stuff to try to remember this stuff. But I'm not going to do that today for you. You see, I've got L and a half, I've got M and a half, N and N and a half. So what we're going to find is generally involving more severe anatomical loss or loss of use, say a combination of extremities or severe vision loss, blindness. We're going to start talking about much higher levels of SMC. These are not as common in my experience. They do exist and they can be awarded. So we're going to be talking about loss of use of both feet and one hand and one foot, blindness with only light perception, etc. These rates are going to escalate with severity and specified combinations of the SMCs. So I believe we're going to tap a little bit more on some of the little rates there in the as I call it, steps. I think I called it something else in the slides. But keep in mind, you can't have like a half step and full step. Veterans and VA, you can't assign half steps and full steps. It's all depending on, again, the criteria that's meant, the combination thereof, and all that complexity that I want to put into another video, just because I know I'm going to lose everybody on this piece. And I want to make sure it's as clear as possible later on. So, intermediate rates, that's what I called it in here. SMC O and P combinations and the intermediate rates. So, intermediate rates. So SMC O, This is going to be granted for specific severe combinations. We're going to talk about multiple losses, such as both arms above the elbow. SMCP is going to be more authorization of intermediate or next higher rates when multiple SMC conditions are met. Like I said, you're going to get, if you're lost on this piece, that's fine. You probably should be. This is just kind of an introduction to the much higher talk in the future. There's also some footnote rules in there in the CFR to help avoid underpaying when multiple entitlements coexist. So just kind of know there's some additional information in there as well. Now we get to SMCR. Now this is also a higher rate of SMC, but it also involves aid and attendance. So L is usually where we fall with aid and attendance. But do know there's an SMCR. There's an R1 and an R2. These are because there's two different paragraphs with two different requirements. This is going to require entitlement to SMC O or maximum under P plus the need for aid and attendance. So say we start combining stuff as we get higher. R1 is going to be a regular aid and attendance need. R2 is going to be requiring a higher level of care on a daily basis provided by the regular supervision of a licensed healthcare professional. So I think we're now getting to a point of maybe in-home care being done around the clock by medical professionals, more of a assisted living type home requiring the constant care around the clock kind of thing. I mean, don't take that completely out of context. I'm kind of trying to give examples, but I think I'm kind of failing there a little bit. The idea is that this is a much higher level of regular aid and attendance, and it gets even higher in R2. We also have SMCT. SMCT is TBI related for special care, for the need of special care. This one I have only seen probably on my whole career necessary once or twice. So we're talking over 17 years, I might have only seen this one once or twice. I want you to know it's there though, and VA should be aware of it too and should be thinking about it probably with every TPI claim that they service connect. So what is SMCT? So for veterans with TBI who without in-home care would require hospitalization, nursing home, or other residential institutional care, this is ultimately what's going to get the SMCT. It's a distinct pathway meant to address unique TBI-related care needs. So this is only for TBI issues. But again, a much higher level. Know it exists. Not a very common one at all in my experience, but know it's there. Now let's talk about that loss of use again really quick and some practical markers on that. When we say loss of use, we're really talking about no effective function remaining compared to amputation and suitable prosthesis. So you could still have, say, your foot, veterans, or your hand, but we're really talking about no effective functionality in it, either your hand or your foot, for example, at all, or the combination of. These markers are going to include extremely unfavorable ankylosis, and ankylosis is the lack of no movement. There's no movement at all, typically, as I know it. Complete paralysis of the certain nerves, again, it's another type of where you can't use it, complete loss. Severe muscle loss or other findings showing functional uselessness. Functional evidence could be found on, say, PT or OT notes, something that shows gait or balance tests, grip strength, ADL assessments. So all this functional evidence, usually medical evidence, can help show the loss of use. They can be very decisive pieces of evidence for the VA. So since we're talking about evidence, what helps? Well, clinical statements addressing regulatory factors. Again, anything that shows home health plans, again, assistive devices that are prescribed, lay evidence from you, veterans, spouses, caregivers, those who are around you all day long, veterans, describing the frequency and severity and safety risks in your daily life. Again, medical evidence, lay evidence, it's the foundation of VA. Now, we kind of get into the combining the SMC without losing levels. So when we use 38 CFR 3.350, paragraph F here, we can check for intermediate next higher rates when entitlement coexists. And this is more for VA to remember that this information's out there that we should be checking for when decisions are being made for these next higher rates for the intermediate rates. The disabilities do have to be kept separate and distinct where required. Statutory path again, for example, the SMC S, the 100%, 60%, where we have to separate the 100% off of the calculation of the 60%. So we do have to keep those things in mind as well. And VA has to also remember not to double count the same disability to satisfy multiple prerequisites unless regulations expressly allow it. So veterans keep in mind that it is possible to still receive multiple SMCs, but it's possible that they all get put together because, again, they can't double count the same disabilities in many cases. Here we go, quick scenarios. So, scenario A, 100% for PTSD, 60% combined for orthopedic conditions. That's all separate. That's a consideration of SMCS. Kind of did an example like that in the beginning. Another quick scenario for you. Scenario B, loss of use of both feet. Well, we know just from the criteria of SMC L that that's likely SMCL. And it could be higher, but we have to check the combinations for higher evaluations. Again, much more complex for a different video, different time. Scenario C here, we could have severe cognitive impairment with daily skilled supervision needs. And this is where VA consider R1 versus R2, for example, in this scenario here. So here's some common confusions for housebound versus aid and attendance. So I use those terms, I feel, a few different times now. So housebound for S is the confinement again to home or the statutory 100% plus 60% pathway. They're not the same as needing personal care. Veteran may be confined to their home, but not necessarily still needing special care or care around the clock. Aid and attendance, which is typically L, to begin with anyways, is need for regular personal attendance in ADLs, safety, even if not strictly confined to the home. So, housebound, 100%, 60% pathway, or confinement to the home. Need for regular aid and attendance does not require confinement to the home. Both of these can be met in different ways, and all we have to do is review the facts against the law. Sounds easy, but I promise this is a more complicated section than that. But for VA, just don't forget, you are making legal decisions. You are interpreting law. I would recommend law school. It's quite fun, really. I think it makes your job easier, in all seriousness. But do understand, if that's not for you, do understand, though, you still got to try to understand the laws. You've got to put them against the facts. Please don't rush through the decisions. These are veterans' lives that you're changing and making a difference for. So understand that multiple SMCs can be granted based upon the facts and the laws. So here's that VA adjudicator checklist, really quick. You got to identify those primary pathways. Know the elements, know the criteria. K, S, L, higher levels, all the combinations. Are those elements met? Do the facts of the case meet the criteria underneath one of those paragraphs? Should it be granted? Remember, veterans, in most cases in VA, the claim for SMC doesn't have to be made. It usually should be inferred by the evidence. Can be made, though, but it's not always required. Continuing with our checklist here, VA, don't forget to verify the separate and distinct requirements when applicable. Avoid the double counting. I know veterans would love to have some extra money to help them out, but do be careful. Don't double count so later on you end up taking all that money away from them that they ultimately learn to live off of. Apply 3.350F. Look at the footnotes for the intermediate, the next higher rates. Document the rationale and reasons and bases requirements. Be detailed in your decision. Give us the explanation. Tell us what you reviewed, why it fits, why it doesn't fit, why is it persuasive, why is it unpersuasive. All right, this is the quick guide for VA there. Veterans, caregiver action steps. Here's what you want. If you're not receiving SMC and you think you should be, and you fit in some of these paragraphs, you want to gather the targeted evidence. Again, clinician letters addressing the need for aid and attendance. Do you need the additional help on everyday life due to your service-connected conditions? Document your ADL needs. Caregivers can do the same. Veterans, if you're able to, make documentation of what you need every day. The frequency for which you need it. The safety risks that are involved with your conditions. Do you experience falls every day? Caregivers, especially if veterans are at a state of mental incapacity where they wander off, document that. Just document. Document. We can even ask providers to explain why care must be delivered by or under licensed supervision to help get to the higher levels of R2 as well. There is a VA form out there that does give the examiners the ability to do an examination to also help answer a lot of these questions. I will do my best to remember to tag it in the description so that everybody knows what that is, and veterans and your caregivers can, if you need aid and attendance, can help with that as well. All right, here's where you can read more. We talked about in the beginning. 38 USC 1114, 38 CFR 3.350, 38 CFR 3.352. Here we go. If you got questions, put them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. However, those questions can only be answered on an educational understanding and platform. If they are specific to your case, please be careful not to put private information that we don't want others having in the comments. But if it is specific to your case and you have questions that may relate to potential representation, seek out a VA accredited attorney, agent, or a VSO. We're all here to help veterans obtain those benefits that you're entitled to. If you choose to reach out to myself and my team here, veteranlink.com is the website you go to schedule that time with me, and we can talk about your case. So key takeaways, SMC is layered on top of scheduler ratings. It's an additional piece. It is special. It comes with your service connection conditions if you meet those requirements in the scheduler that are above the scheduler ratings. My bad. You're going to want to map the facts to the requirements found in the CFR. Make sure you have all the evidence needed, medical, lay evidence alike. Always check for combinations and higher level evaluations, VA, and both veterans and VA. Don't leave any entitlement on the table. It's there for you, veterans. VA is there for the veterans. Please make sure they got it. With that, I thank you very much for being here with me to walk through SMC level, skill level 101. I went over, I see my 20 minutes. I'm about 30 minutes. I apologize for the extra time. So much to say in the law. And now it's time for me to quit just rambling and say, see you next week.